guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So I got loads read this week and I'm going to jump straight in and tell you everything that I read. The first book I finished this week is one that I got from HarperCollins for review, and it's called The Riviera Express by T.P. Fielden. This is kind of a comical mystery kind of book set in, it's about the late 1950s, early 1960s, in this small little town in England, and it's about this reporter called Miss Dinmont, and she's a bit of a funny kind of character. She's an older woman. She is a bit of like, you know, she sticks her nose into a lot of things, but she's quite clever, and basically there's this little town, and a very well-known actor is found dead on the train in the town, and then the same day another guy is found dead from an apparent fall from the cliffs, and Miss Dinmont thinks that these two deaths are connected, and she starts kind of looking into it and seeing how these two men were connected and what could have happened to cause both of them to die on the same day near around the same time. So it's just kind of this mystery with her sticking her nose into a lot of things and trying to figure things out. And this is kind of one of those books where it's set in this kind of small, sleepy kind of town, and there's a lot of like funny kind of eccentric characters, and everyone kind of knows everyone and everybody's business and stuff like that. So it was enjoyable, but I wasn't like crazy about it. I didn't really connect to a lot of the characters. I did think Miss Dinmont was pretty like funny and kooky, and I did enjoy kind of seeing her figure things out. But for the other characters, I just wasn't as fussed about them. There were some other point of views which I didn't quite care about. I would have preferred to have the whole book just to Miss Dinmont's point of view. I did like the fact that it kind of sometimes talked about like the effect of the war in the village, that even though the World War II had been over for quite a few years, there was still the shadow of it, and people were still very aware of, like, you know, kind of the grief and all that kind of stuff around the war. Like, there was a bit where they were talking about the boy with the telegrams, and how when people still saw him come up like the drive with a telegram, their heart would still kind of stop in fear of thinking that, you know, it was announcing the death of a loved one. And I just thought that was really great, because I thought that would have been very actually realistic for a lot of towns and villages or everywhere after the war, and I just really liked that. And there's quite a lot kind of clues about Miss Dinmont's past, and she had something to do with the war effort, and she obviously had some kind of important job during the war, which has helped her kind of become the reporter that she is, and kind of why she is quite savvy and being able to pick up clues and kind of solve all these mysteries. So I did like that as well. But for the mystery itself, I didn't find it that like entertaining or like really riveting or anything. I didn't actually really care that much about like who did it and stuff like that, and I found that like I don't know, I think the person who ended up doing it, I was a bit like, okay, like, I don't know, it's just sometimes you have all these guesses, and it wasn't someone I had guessed quite, like, I don't know, I just hadn't put the connections together, and I just felt like the reader might not have been given enough clues, but I'm not really sure. I'm a bit like on the fence about this book, I guess. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next book is a book I read from NetGalley, and it's called The Bone Witch by Chupeco. This is a YA fantasy book about a girl called Tia, and she is basically in this world there are kind of witches, and when her brother dies and she brings her brother back to life, she ends up finding out that she's something called a bone witch, which means that she has the power to raise the dead, and she's quite a powerful witch. So she ends up being taken by this other bone witch and goes to this kind of part of the land where she can go into training and learn how to become a proper witch, and she kind of learns all about her powers, and she can do all these crazy things, like she can raise the dead, she can kill these kind of demons. She's the only kind of witch that's able to kill these demons that are plaguing this world, and like every 5 or 10 years these demons kind of raise up from the dead and have to be killed again. So it's the witch's job, the bone witch's job, to keep killing these, and she kind of learns how to do that, and she kind of figures out different ways that she might be able to protect the world from these demons. And yeah, kind of a quick summary of this book, because I don't want to say too much about it, because I kind of went into it only knowing like the bare minimum, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought the world building was really great. We get a lot of information about the history of the world. We see a lot of different people from different parts of the world in it. I really like Tia as a character. We see her when she's quite young, when she's about 13 years old, when we first meet her, when she first gains her powers, and we kind of are with her then for the first like few years then of her training. So we do see her grow from like quite a young girl who's very unsure of herself to someone who's growing more and more confident in her own powers. And her brother, who she's raised from her dead, becomes like her familiar, so he has to stay with her because she used her powers to raise her from her dead. Because so he's not quite dead, but he's not quite alive either. And he kind of becomes like just this constant companion to her, and I really loved him. I just fell in love with her brother. There were parts of this book where it's like skipping forward a few years, so we know something weird has happened around Tia, and she's kind of telling her story to this other person who's come to find her, and it's between each chapters we get this kind of snippet of the future. And I did enjoy that for the most part, but there was a lot of talk about like the love of her life and the guys that she fell in love with and guys she was attracted to, and I don't know, I just felt like that kind of took away from the story a bit, because I liked the story itself, like the magic and the training and stuff like that, and I didn't quite really care about the romantic like love interest. That I didn't really care about the love interests that were kind of introduced. There wasn't much emphasis in like young Taya's life about the love interest. We know who she was attracted to and who she wasn't attracted to, but there wasn't anything further than that, so I was kind of annoyed that it kept being brought back to it in like the future part, where she kind of kept talking about the guy that she loved, and we never knew which guy it was that she was talking about until the very end, and I totally guessed who it was at the very end as well. I think I just read enough books like this to know who it was. I really enjoyed this. I just thought the character development was really good. I really liked the world building. I really loved the magic system, and everything was just really descriptive and really vivid, and I really enjoyed it, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was The White Hare by Michael Fishwick, and I'm not actually going to talk about this book because I have a video review of this book coming in a couple of days, which I talk more about this book, but I will say I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars and I did really enjoy it, and it's kind of a middle grade magical realism kind of adventure story. So yeah, I did really enjoy this. 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I finished was one of my most anticipated reads of this year, and it's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a book about kind of a magical carnival that this girl goes to with her sister, and she basically has to play the game in this carnival to try and save her sister's life in the end. And that's all I'm going to say about it, about the plot of this book, because I feel like it's kind of nice not knowing too much about what is going on in it. I did really enjoy this. It took me a while to get used to the main character, Scarlett. She felt quite flat for me for a while. I didn't quite like feel anything particular towards her. I was just kind of following her story. And eventually I did kind of end up liking her, and I did kind of get more respect for her. But for quite a while she was a little bit flat. I did like the love interest. It was a very cliche love interest, but I did end up finding myself enjoying it, and kind of just the language and the descriptions around their feelings towards each other and stuff like that, and I did quite enjoy that. I love the descriptions of the carnival. I wish we could have seen more of it, but I did enjoy what I did see, and I would like definitely to see more of it. I would like to see the carnival like in the next few books, because this is going to be a trilogy or a series, I think. So I would like to see maybe the carnival in another setting than the one that we saw in this one, because in this one it was on kind of an island owned by the guy who runs the carnival, so it wasn't in like a different world. It wasn't on like in a city or a town or anything. So I'd like to see it maybe travelling in the next book, and see what it's like somewhere else other than this like private island. I had originally given this a 4 out of 5 stars because I didn't quite love it the way I thought I would love it. But I was actually watching Sam from Thoughts and Tomes. She has a gripe video on this book, because she only gave it 1 out of 5 stars, and I actually found myself agreeing with a lot of the stuff she had problems with in this book. So the more I'm kind of thinking about it, the more I'm thinking maybe it's like a 3.5 or a strong 3, because I still did enjoy it. I obviously enjoyed it a lot more than Sam, who gave it a 1 star. But I did like kind of the magic and I like, you know, just the feeling of fun and magic and stuff in it. It's kind of a darker magic though. It's not somewhere that I would like to go myself. Like, it's not like the night circus, which I would love to visit, which is very kind of a whimsical magic and a lovely kind of magic. This is kind of more of a dark magic where you're not really sure what would happen to you if you went to this place. So it's not somewhere that I would like to visit myself. But yeah, so I gave it, like, as I said, was a 4 star. Maybe it's more of a 3.5 star now that I think about it more and I'm listening to other people's opinions and agreeing with their opinions. So yeah, so 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it overall, it just wasn't as great as I expected it to be. Next book I finished was an audiobook, and that was Oh Danny Boy by Rhys, which is the 5th book in the Molly Murphy mystery series. In this book, Molly obviously has another mystery to solve, and in this one her love interest, Daniel, who is a police captain of the New York police, he has been basically someone is saying that he has been like a dirty cop, that he's been taking bribes, and he has been sent to jail, and she has to basically prove that someone is framing him and try and get him out. So she's dealing with like a lot of her feelings towards Daniel and trying to figure out how she feels towards him while also trying to figure this out. And at the same time there is an East Side Ripper going through New York, and all these girls are being found kind of mutilated and killed, and it's kind of like, you know, the East Side's version of Jack the Ripper kind of thing. So she ends up kind of becoming involved in that as well. So I did quite enjoy this one. I think overall for this, the story was probably a 4-star. I did really enjoy Molly kind of sticking her nose into a lot of things. She becomes friends with a female police officer at one point, and I just really enjoyed her seeing another female in that kind of line of work and forming a bond and them helping each other out, kind of this female friendship thing. And there was another girl in it, Arabella Norton, who is someone who she probably wouldn't have liked in the last few books, and there was kind of like this rivalry between them, and in this book that is kind of put aside and they end up becoming friends. And I just liked that, seeing, you know, that these girls, there doesn't have to be this girl on girl bitchiness or this girl on girl rivalry, that they can set aside their own feelings and they can become friends, work together and become friends. I did really enjoy that. The only problem with this one, as it was the last one, was the narrator, which was Nicola Barber, who is English and can't really do an Irish accent that well. I did get used to it because I'd read the other one, so I was more used to her accents in this book. But there was one point where she called an Irish character that was in it, her name is Nuala, and she called her Nuala, and I was literally just like, what? Like, do you not have anyone telling you how to pronounce these Irish names? Like, it's your job to do this correctly. And she called her Nuala. Like, come on. Like, I have no words. I can't. So overall, 4 out of 5 for the story, 2.5 to 3 for the narration. And then after 2 weeks, I finally finished Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This was a reread. I have read this before, but it just took me forever to read it this time. I don't know why. I just kind of kept putting it down. I had a few days like where I wasn't picking it up, but I did enjoy my reread of this. I do enjoy Jane Eyre. It was funnier this time than I remember it being the first time I read it. I kind of picked up on a lot more of the humour in it, particularly Mr. Rochester's humour. I never realised he was quite so funny before, and then he was quite so eccentric. Like, some of the things he says and some of the stuff like he's saying to Jane, he just sounds a bit crazy, and I was just like, okay, like you're a weird one. But yeah, I did really enjoy this, and one of the reasons I wanted to read this is because I went to see Jane Eyre by Dyad Productions in a small theatre near my house, and it is by Rebecca Vaughan. It's basically a one-woman play of Jane Eyre, and she's basically speaking out. It's kind of Jane Eyre condensed down into a 25-page script, and she's playing all the different characters, and it was absolutely wonderful. I would give it like a 5 out of 5 stars. If anyone sees this coming to near them, like, I would 100% recommend to go. Even if you don't know, even if you've never read Jane Eyre before, you can go and see this and enjoy it, because I brought my mum, and my mum had never read or seen anything about Jane Eyre. She didn't know the story, and she ended up really enjoying it. And Rebecca Vaughan is just absolutely wonderful. She's able to play all the characters, all the different voices. Like, she was just phenomenal, and I really enjoyed this. So would 100% recommend people going to see Jane Eyre, an autobiography by Dyad Productions. The last book that I finished this week was Done Dirt Cheap by Sarah Nicole Lemon. This is a book I got from Amulet, which is an imprint of Abrams and Chronicles books, and I got it in exchange for an honest review, of course. This is about 2 different girls, Tourmaline and Virginia. Tourmaline is the daughter of a man who is kind of the president of this motorcycle club in their town, and her mother is in jail, and she has kind of all these issues around her mother being in jail. She kind of blames herself for it. Then Virginia is kind of, how do I describe Virginia? She is a girl who's kind of had to fend for herself for quite a long time. She becomes friends with Tourmaline. She knows her from school, but she ends up becoming friends with her when her boss, who's kind of this crooked lawyer slash drug dealer is telling her to get in with the Wardens, who is Tourmaline's dad's motorcycle club, and she basically becomes friends with Tourmaline to try and figure out what is going on with this motorcycle club, what they really do. There's all these rumours about what they do, and Tourmaline is saying no, they're actually like pretty nice guys, like they don't do anything like shady, like as people would think they do. And Virginia doesn't really believe her and wants to go in and kind of spy on the Wardens and see what's going on. But the two of them end up becoming really, really good friends and end up kind of helping each other out in tight spots, and it's just kind of about their friendship and about them figuring out like their secrets behind this motorcycle club and stuff like that. So that's as much as I can give you without like giving too much away, but I really, really enjoyed this. I thought the female friendship in it was really, really great. It was like, you know, it didn't start off like straight away, it kind of gradually like got going, and they kind of were like really similar and not similar at the same time. Like Tourmaline is she's been quite protected for most of her life, even though her mother was like a drug user and her mother's in jail and she has to deal with all of that. Because of her father, she's been quite protected, where with Virginia, she never had parents like that who would protect her, and she's kind of had to fend for herself, and she's had some horrible things happen to her. So there's like a lot of things where Tourmaline is saying like Tourmaline's 18 isn't Virginia's 18, and I kind of got that a lot in it. There's something about this that's just like so raw and edgy and gritty. Like this is quite a gritty book, and because a lot of it is centered around this motorcycle club and these guys in this motorcycle club, it's quite like wild and raw and sexy. Like there's a lot of like sexy scenes in this, and not so much like, you know, actual sex scenes, but just like feelings of kind of attraction and lust, and you know, like Virginia looking at one of the guys who she finds attractive and like wanting to bite him and stuff like that. Like there's just like these really great descriptions. And there is one with Tourmaline who she like gets in the back of a guy's bike that she likes, and there's this description about her kind of like wrapping her like legs around him from behind while he's like driving the motorbike, and how she feels safe enough to kind of scoot closer to him. And I don't know, just the way it's described and the way like she describes like feeling his body close to hers, and then the wind rushing through their hair as they're going down the street, and she sees like the road behind them, like, you know, this like silver stretch of road behind them, and the way it's all described is so free, and there's just so much energy in it, and as I said, so much sexiness in it. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed reading it. It's like quite a book full of feeling and attraction. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how a lot of these characters, they put a face on in front of other characters, but then there are people who can see them for who they really are. There's a lot of descriptions about what someone is pretending to be versus who they are, and I just thought the way the whole thing was written like that, it was really, really clever, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, like I don't want to say too much about this book because I just feel like it's something that you have to kind of read to experience yourself, and I feel like it could work for some people and not work for others. It worked for me because I really enjoy these kind of more gritty kind of books, and yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it, and I gave it like a really strong 4 out of 5 stars, and I really recommend it. And yay for female friendships. So that's everything I have read this week. I feel like I've been talking forever. Please let me know what you guys think down below with a comment, and if you guys haven't seen my video from during the week about a book giveaway, I will leave that linked up above somewhere if you want to enter to win a book, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.